Hey guys, what's up? It's PV3 here. I hope you are well. Welcome to Backstage with Pete Vargas III, who is excited to be here today. Welcome to today's show. I'm going to tell you what, this is a show unlike any other show. You guys are in for a treat today. I'm so grateful. I just one of you tagged me last week in about this show, and the response was, and I'm gonna find this person who tagged me, and I'm gonna make sure that the team knows about it. But just let me know, man. Thank you for all of the free content that you put out into this world. That's what this week is all about. This is what we do week in and week out. And I'm so excited because the guest list of who you told us you wanted, we continue to bring to you. There were two people that you said that you wanted on here that was constant in the chat before we had a name for the show. And one of them is happening this week, and one of them is happening next week. And I'm so excited about that. Today, here in just a couple of minutes, I'm going to have Brandon Dawson joining us. And there's a lot of people that talk about having a 7-figure mindset or an 8-figure mindset, but what about a 9-figure mindset? Anybody know what 9 figures means? And then if you start to get into 10 figures, what does that mean? Because to go to a place that you want to go, you got to find someone who's been there. And you don't have to. You can make a lot of the mistakes the way that you want to make them. You can do a lot of the things wrong. But I'm just telling you, the shortcut, reason why so many people give up is because they try to do it their way and try to figure it out. And so I'm excited because this week, we're going to be bringing you Brandon Dawson today and really going to help you think in a way that you've never thought before. And next week, anybody want to take a guess who I'm going to have next week with us? Maybe drop it in the chat. You requested these folks. You requested. You want to go backstage with these people. I'm curious who you want to see, men and women. We've had powerful men. We've had powerful women on this show. We'll continue to bring them to you. But you requested this person next week. And so next week, I am so excited to bring one of the sweetest folks that exist, but one of the most powerhouse folks that exist is Amy Porterfield is going to be in the house with us next week. Who knows Amy Porterfield? Oh my gosh, she used to work for Tony Robbins, and what she has created with digital courses. For any of you that have a digital course next week, we're going to be talking about that, but we're also going to be talking about how do you launch it? How do you actually take the expertise that exists inside of your brain and launch a digital course out into this world? We're going to be talking about that next week. And so I'm so excited. Make sure that you're letting people know about the show, encouraging them to join the show. It's every single Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do it live, but then we chop it up and make it a show that we really believe is going to help you do one of 4 things. It's going to help you become more of a world-class communicator. It's going to help you understand the products and services that you could be taking into this market and what's working with different products and services. It's going to help you build your own stages, and it's going to help you begin to get yourself on other people's stages. That's what this whole thing is about, getting your message out to the world, because your message matters. It matters. And so super grateful for today. I'm curious, I got folks in Melbourne right now saying, I stay up till 4 a.m. Come on, Rod, let's go. You stay up till 4 a.m. I'm curious today, a couple of things that I want you to let me know, because we're constantly got Mexico in the house, got Florida in the house. Who do you want to see? Who do you want to see backstage with PV3? Because the rotation is, I'm probably going to teach once every 4 to 6 weeks, but all of those other 5 or 6 weeks are going to be people that I bring. Yeah, we'll definitely bring you Uncle G. Uncle G will be in the house. We've already had Pat Quinn. You want to hear Priscilla Schreier. You want to hear John Maxwell. You want to hear Grant's gym coach. Okay. Some of you said Gary Brecka. Yeah, we want to make sure that we're bringing you backstage to really make sure that you are growing your business, growing your movement, and understanding. Here's the thing. Most people don't want to pull back the curtain and show you what's working, but we're going to show you what's working. And so today we're about to get started. I see Amy Porterfield. Terrence says Amy Porterfield. Yeah, she'll be here next week. She will be here with us next week. So I'm glad that you said that. We see Marissa. I see Chris. I see Jamie Kern Lima. Yeah. Okay. I got us a list. I got us a list. You want to see Russell Brunson? I got it. I love it. I love it. I love it. And so, Rachel, we good to go? We good to go? Yeah, yeah, yeah. We are good to go. So I want to bring our guest on today, and I'm so excited. A lot of you have requested this person, and we haven't had him on the show. I'm super stoked. Hey, Twitter Space, Instagram, Zoom, everywhere that this is being streamed live, get your questions ready, because I will allow I'm going to let the guiding of our interview today be guided not just by what I want to ask him, but what you want to ask him, I'm really excited because a lot of you are trying to figure out how to go to that next level in your business. I'm curious, what's that next level look like for you in a revenue standpoint? What's that next level? Where are you at? Where are you trying to get in your business? Let us know that today. Let us know that today in the chat. Drop that in the chat. You're at 250 and you're trying to get where? Mark says, I'm at 30 million. Mark, where are you at today? Some people say actually having revenues. First sale, I'm trying to get 250,000. I'm trying to get from 1.5 million to 5 million. I'm trying to get from 2 to 250. I'm trying to get from 10,000 to 100,000. So it's all over the board. Mark's at 26 million, trying to get at 30 million. Somebody who's in multiple six figures trying to cross into the seven figures. Now, here's what's beautiful. There's nobody on here that's saying I'm trying to get to 100 million. Nobody's on here that said that. Now, your big dream might be 100 million, but one of the things that this next gentleman, who his business partner and my business partner, Grant Cardone, Grant always makes fun of me because he's like, what does 6 figures and 7 figures and 8 figures and 9 figures mean? 6 figures is $100,000 or more. 7 figures is millions of dollars. 8 figures is tens of millions of dollars. 9 figures means that you're making hundreds of millions of dollars in your business. And I guess technically 10 figures means you're making billions of dollars in your business. And I'm so excited to bring you this next guy because he's not just recently written a book called 9-Figure Mindset. He's done it not once, but a couple of times. And before it's all said and done, I bet you he'll have 5 to 10 to 15, maybe 20. I don't even know what his big dream is, but not only $100 million companies, he'll have companies that are worth billions of dollars. He sold his company at a young age for 77 times EBITDA, which is just a fancy way or another way of saying 77 times kind of the bottom line, the net income. And he is a brilliant, brilliant guy, one of the smartest guys that I've ever met in my life. And I'm so excited to welcome backstage to all of the channels we're streaming this, to all of our VIPs here on Zoom. I'm so excited to welcome to backstage with PV3 to my good friend, Mr. Brandon Dawson. Brandon, are you there, man?
Pete Vargas, how are you doing, my good friend?
Come on, bro. I'm good, man. I've been waiting for this interview, man. Thanks for being with us. One of the things that I asked, who do you want? People said Brandon Dawson, man. So I'm excited to have you today.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm excited to be here for sure.
So Brandon, I've been really intrigued lately. Like your first company you built was how, like, tell us about, just give us the high level of that first company, and you sold it. And like, I just want to know.
The first company I built when I was 27, I went out and raised private equity, first private money and then private equity. And by 29 years old, I rang the opening bell of the American Stock Exchange with doing a massive deal with Warburg Pincus, big institution out in New York. And by 32, they had fired me and sold my company. So it really set me back because I thought I was on top of the world. And that's the one thing I tell business owners is when you think everything's perfect, it's about the time that you're going to get surprised. And so productive paranoia is actually a good thing. But because of that experience, I launched my second business, Audigy Group, in 2005, and then exited that in 2016 for $151 million, and then took a $1 billion company to $4.5 billion in 36 months, expanding that platform into 8 separate countries.
Brandon, I just saw something, and I've never seen you talk about this. Like, something happened even after you sold that company. Did I recently see something like you really felt like I don't know if depressed is the right word, but you went through some what's the word that you said? I just watched it.
I definitely went through you know, I don't know that I would ever acknowledge me being depressed about anything, but I definitely went through a period of time where I got lost a little bit. So, you know, when I was fired from, when my private equity guys fired me and sold my business, basically, it happened really quickly and I fought to buy it back. And I could be a victim of other people's decisions, right? So I was pissed. I was angry. Now you go to fast forward, and I had to learn back then how to readjust my thinking so my doing followed my thinking towards my intention. But when I sold my business, I went through, and then I integrated it globally and took $1 billion company to $4.5 billion. And then they were like, "Thank you so much, we're done." And all of a sudden, I come home and I had no purpose. And so I had a lot of money, no purpose. Although I had done 10 years of research on businesses and I had all this big dreams of doing something bigger, I actually went through a state of loss for me looking backwards, because I lost all those employees and all that, taking the hill every day and winning. And all of a sudden I had nothing to do. And then I had to ask myself a question: what if I do something now and I screw it up? And I was the one-hit wonder, or I got lucky. And so I went through this state of not depression, but more question, losing my own confidence about what I can do. And then that triggered a different state of reality, which is, I'm better than this. I'm getting fat, I'm buying cars, I'm buying houses. And my wife's saying, "Hey, I didn't get together with you because I wanted to retire. I wanted to go build with you." And so there was a lot of confusion. And I always say confusion creates failure. So if I was to put myself in a state of mind, it was almost like a state of mind of confusion, which was cause and effect. The cause was confusion. The effect felt like depression or anxiety or stress or fear. And I had to pull myself back out of that. Fortunately, I had my beautiful wife who helped me, and she introduced me to the 10X rule. And that's where I was like, hell yeah, I'm getting back in the game. And so what I can tell you is that I would have never thought, and what's funny is I actually teach entrepreneurs who sell their business. I have about 20 guys that have sold between 100 million and $1 billion who have come to me saying, I found that, I watched that, because I've talked about it now for 1.5 years. I've heard you say that. I didn't believe it was believable till after I sold my company, and now I'm coming to you because I need help.
What about the flip side, Brandon? You had it specifically because of not having purpose and the money. It's the same thing on the person who's not growing their business right now. They feel they're the opposite. They haven't gotten to that point. They feel confusion. They feel like they're never going to be able to take the hill. Like, take us into the mind of not a guy that's built one 9-figure company, but multiple 9-figure and 10-figure companies. Like, what would you say to that person who hasn't been able to take the hill with their business? I want to get into your 9-figure mindset in this interview today.
Yeah. So one of the things I teach business owners is the 4 A's. And this is from my own experiences. And this is from me learning from all my mentors and then taking the risk and getting the result, right? So the 4 A's. The 4 A's starts with acknowledge, then it goes to accept, then it goes to act, and then it goes to attack. Okay. So for anybody that's feeling right now like I'm a little lost, or I'm a little frustrated, or I'm a little angry, I'm a little confused, all those thoughts and all that energy into that thinking is actually the reason you're being pulled off target, because you're consuming space, you're consuming time, you're consuming energy in all that thinking versus consuming it in action. So what I tell people is, confusion always creates failure. There's only one path to go when you're confused, or the team around you is confused. It's going to be failure, because inaction is what's killing you. The fact that you're not certain as to what action you're taking is, by definition, why you're not moving forward, because now you got to accept the third principle. So acknowledge it. Like, hey, I'm frustrated, I'm pissed, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm disappointed, I'm whatever, right? Acknowledge it. Okay, it is what it is. Quit talking about it. Admit it to yourself and acknowledge it. Now, what's the next day? Accept it. Okay, I accept it. It is what it is. You know, my older brother used to tell me there's the way it could be, there's the way it should be, there's the way you'd like it to be, there's the way it probably, you know, it probably is supposed to be, But we all live in a reality, in a world of it is what it is. And as soon as you acknowledge it is what it is, then you can ask yourself the next question. What would I like it to be? Because now you're eliminating confusion. So if you're in a state where your revenues aren't growing, your profitability is not growing, you're struggling hiring great people, you're struggling in any mindset of struggle, then the question is, if I wasn't in struggle, what would the alternate picture look like? What would it be? So acknowledge it, accept it. And once you get that picture, that mental picture, John Maxwell talks about law of picture. It's so important because devoid of picture, it's easy to get lost. And you can't create directions around a lack of a picture of where you're going. So once you acknowledge it, you accept it. Now you're going to go, okay, what I want it to be is this other thing. I want to double my revenues. I want to double my profitability. I want to double spending. I want to spend half as much time at work. Whatever it is, write that target down. Because now you're creating, at least you're eliminating confusion and you're starting to create clarity as to what you do want. What I find with most business owners is they spend all their time talking about what's wrong. They spend their time talking about what they don't like. They spend their time talking about what they don't want. And I sit and listen to them. I'm like, what can you just for maybe 15 seconds tell me what you'd actually like? Just what if you could just change everything about everything you just said, and you could pick one thing that you would actually like in your life. What's that look like? And do you know the number of people when I ask that question, they just go blank because they haven't thought about it. And since I know the algorithm is what you think, is what you say is what you do, and what you do is what you're known for. If you're not thinking about what you want, you're not talking about what you want. And law of attraction is a real thing, but it's an algorithm, and it's law of intention, then action, then you attract. You don't attract because you hope it comes to you. You attract when you move towards the stated objective. So when you start taking action towards what you want, all of a sudden you're going to have more success than talking about what you don't want. And then as you start to get a little bit of momentum, you go all in and you attack it. And now the only thing you're thinking about is, how many people a day do I talk to? How many calls do I make a day? How many connections do I make today? What do I say when I talk to them? How do I move them into the next level of conversation? How do I teach my team to do it? How do I find remarkable people? How do I train those? How do I set those goals? How do I set those targets? How do I move? And you just start going, attacking it and obliterating it. And what you're going to find when you start doing that is all the people that you've surrounded yourself with are going to try to claw you back to mediocrity because you're making everyone else uncomfortable.
Wow. So in that third phase of action, after you ask that question, what do I want? And you get clear on that. Sometimes I find myself thinking 7 different things I need to do. Like, how do you think about it? I don't think that's how you think about it. And so then I get stuck. And all I can tell you Brandon, you probably know this, but I've lost 35, 40 pounds this year.
I know, you look amazing, dude. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. And the way that I did is I stopped saying I got to do 10 things. I'm going to freaking go walk 10,000 steps before 9 a.m., period. And I believe that will create the motion to say, oh yeah, I want to eat well too. And I want to do this, but I just started to focus on one thing. Is that the right mentality with action, or how?
Yeah. So you said that your first thought. So just, I think the thing that's really important for people to understand is that think of particles in a post. You know, if you have a post and you have all these particles and you see them all floating around the room and you're confused which particle to grab, all you need to do is grab one particle and say, what's on that particle, and stick it to the post, right? So you have 7 things. You write down 7 things. Now what you do is you just do one other drill. You write down on a scale 1 to 7, which is the first thing that's going to be the easiest for you to do to find success. So if you have 7 things, what number them 1 through 7? And just put them in sequence and then go do the first thing. I mean, you still are in total control of your choice. It's still your idea, but you can't do the second thing if you don't do the first thing. So if you have 7 things you want to do, just put them in order that you find it from easiest to hardest, and then start somewhere. And now if you're not starting, you have a different issue.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, Brandon, one of the cool things about you is that you didn't just sell that company for, guys, 77 times EBITDA, which means that their net income was about $2 million. Brandon, you're now in Cardone Ventures, this year, this is just unbelievable because you're not a vanilla ice one hit wonder. You're a guy that does it over and over and over again, not just for yourself, but the people that you work with. This year, Cardone Ventures is probably on pace to do what this year?
It's our 4th year, and we will do over 135 million in revenue with no debt, no deployed capital, and from pure startup with no employees. 49 months ago, we had 0 employees. It's just my wife and I.
Guys, like, give some love for that. Like, in 4 years, everybody, in 4 years, he did what took you how long to do the first go round? 15, 20 years, Brandon?
15 years. So we are 5 times bigger in size and value in 48 months than it took me 15 years. Now, during that 15 years, I did all the research and built the technologies and did all the studying. The missing piece for me was how to go from obscurity. And Grant Cardone talks about those that, you know, you can't flow, those that don't know you can't flow you. Better known beats best. And so the big issue I had is I had all this information and I had all this data and all these technology and systems and research. But my big thing when I wrote down the 7 things, the number one thing was, where do I find a client that cares? And then the answer to that was, Natalie and I kept talking about it. Well, we could go to my private equity guys. I could start doing social media. And then Natalie said, what about collaboration? So we wrote collaboration down as one of the ways that I could solve the biggest problem, which is nobody knows who the hell I am. So in the journey of solving the one thing, we found Grant Cardone. Now, we went through a whole process to do that, but we landed on Grant Cardone. And so then when we approached him, I'm like, here's where my expertise is. Here's what my credibility is. Here's where I see a perfect fit between you and us. And I met you at that same meeting. And I told people I went there to become Grant Cardone. I had dinner with you before I ever met or talked to Grant Cardone. And I told you I came there to see if Grant was going to be a good partner for me.
Yep.
And you know that to be true because we sat in the lobby of the hotel and we talked about it. Yep. And so 3 months later, we partnered. But when I had that conversation with you and a half a dozen other people, when they asked, why are you here? John Maxwell, we went to dinner the night before. Why are you here? I'm seeing if Grant Cardone is going to be the right kind of partner for Natalie and I for what we want to do. So what's funny is we just came off of a week-long cruise in Italy, and John Maxwell and his whole team were on that ship. And they all told Grant that when they went to dinner with me, this is before the meeting even started, the 2019 GrowthCon, John told Grant, I asked Brandon, why are you here? And Brandon said, I'm here to see if Grant is going to make the right partner for Natalie and I for the next business we're going to build. And that's intentionality. I went there intentionally. I had 5 things I was looking for. And if I saw them, I was all in. There was no confusion. I just needed to get Grant to know who we were.
Yeah.
And so everything becomes a process with intentionality. And I think when you operate without that in your business, you get lost, you meander, it's easy to get distracted or take a different turn or get confused or get lazy or get comfortable. And so intentionality will drive all this, but that's how we landed with Grant Cardone, and he was a perfect partner for us. His audience was the perfect audience. And we've been able to execute as a collective team within the Cardone enterprise nomenclature, including you as partners to both Grant and I. We all work so well together that if people met us in the backstage, they would think we all have been working together for years.
Yeah, I love it, guys. Like, I just want you to see what he just did, and you might not even seen the meta. He acknowledged that, man, like, obscurity and not being able to get like enough attention is one of my things. He accepted that. Then he said, I'm going to go take action, and I'm going to go to GrowthCon and make sure Grant has these things. And if he has these things, I'm going to go attack it. And we won't get into the whole story, but he attacked it. He was smart and strategic with attacking Grant. Like, when he went on to Cabo and he's like giving him a plane and giving him a house and doing all of these things to get his attention. And when he got his attention, it was a no-brainer. And I know today Grant would say it was one of the best decisions that he's ever made, because what John Maxwell says about Brandon is he's one of the smartest business guys that he has ever met in his life. Brandon, I want to I got to talk about this a little bit because it's been a huge part. And then we're going to go and we're going to have a little fun game of inside the mind of a 9-figure business owner. And one day, guys, just for the record, he will have a 10-figure exit. Like, I'll just prophetically speak that over him right now.
You know, can I say this? I wrote this book. I had been putting this off for years, right? And my mentor finally told me, John Maxwell, you need to write your book, because I already have it's a trilogy. I've got 3 books. I already know what they're named. And when I talked to John, he says, you better get that book you've been working on for 10 years done, because otherwise no one's going to care about it when you put your 3rd book out, because it'll be too late. And so this book is how I reset my mindset, not once, but multiple times, how I learned, how I found the right mentors and picked them, what I learned from them, the process of learning from people I had never met, then how I formulated what I learned, and then the mentors who kicked me in the ass and told me to get my shit together, the coaches you need in your life. You don't need people holding your hand and telling you you're great and the world's working against you. You need the person to look you in the eye and say, you're better than that. And I expect more out of you, or I won't spend time with you. You need the right influences in your life, and you need to hear it. Okay. So this book is how I maneuvered through all that, and how I found my opportunity to succeed, and then what I did on a granular level to execute to reach a 9-figure mindset. But I wrote this book bringing you up into the relationship, starting with Grant and Elena. But understand that in 15 years, I went from a net worth of about $250,000 to $100 million in 15 years. In 4 years, I've taken my net worth from $100 million to $375 million because of what I've learned from Grant. Now, what was my contribution to Grant? I've added $375 million of value to Grant's life. So collaboration is going to be the fastest way to success, and it's more fun when you can do it with like-minded people. But I cover exactly how I pulled my shit together, the good, bad, and indifferent. There's a whole chapter here on my wives, plural, because I'm on my 3rd. There's a reason I made mistakes in the 1st and 2nd. I'm just sharing what my journey was and how I overcame it to help those people that might be struggling a bit, to help them be able to do the same thing. But when the next 2 books come out, look, I already have the title for the 3rd book. I can't write a 3rd book called The 10-Figure Mindset until I prove to you on the record that I did it. So I've done the 9-figure. I am going to be at the 10-figure in 36 to 48 months. And my words to your ears, if I can do it as a 2.4 GPA, voted least likely to succeed from a little shitty town in Oregon, you can do it.
Yeah, dude. I freaking love that, man. I don't know about you guys, but I want to get off and start going and attacking right now because I feel so inspired. I love that, guys. You heard that right. 250K to 100 million took him 15 years. Went from 100 million to 375 million in 4 years. And now we'll go from 375 million in net worth to $1 billion+ in the next 3.5 to 4 years. And so I want to encourage you guys a couple of times today. You know that we bring this to you free content. The only thing I ever talk about are books, the few books that I think can really make a difference in your life. This is one of them. If you go to 10xstages.com/Brandon, 10xstages.com/Brandon, I want you to pick up one book for you. And if you're really wise, you'll pick up a few for your team members or a friend or a client you're wanting to land. Like, go pick up a few books. And here's what we're going to do for anybody that picks up books. On September 14th, we're going to host a training that day that's all about making you think like a 9-figure entrepreneur. And it'll be an online training. It will be out of this world. So anybody that picks up a book we're going to host that free training on September 14th. And all of you need to be there, because I can tell you some of the things that are going to happen on the 14th. I know it, but a lot of it's kind of secretive. And I'm telling you, it will be impactful, because here's what I think. If you can begin to think around a guy who's done 9 figures, what if you never get to 9 figures, but you accidentally hit 7 figures or 8 figures or whatever? Like, Think about that. You got to be, it's what John Maxwell calls the law of the lid. Like, you have to be learning from people who have done things that you haven't done. So I'm going to come back to the speaking, but there's a question that's pressing with me that I just think I'm going to get inside of Brandon's mind for about 10 more minutes, guys. Brandon, there's a lot of junk being taught by a lot of gurus and marketers that have never really built a business, and they've never had an exit. They've never done what you've done. What are some of the, let me get inside of your mind, and what are some of the things, maybe 3 to 5 things that, like, you kind of play us against them for a minute with us? Like, guys, these are a few things that do not, are junk in your mind. Maybe that's.
Yeah. So look, it's up to the individual to have the responsibility to qualify. So if you're the one with the agenda, you're the one with the objective, you're the one with the dream, then it's your responsibility to qualify who you're listening to. So you don't get to be a victim of listening to those people and being confused by them because you didn't do the right job to qualify. Okay. So that's the first thing. Here's what I do. I can only tell you what I've done and what really has allowed me to succeed, because I've dealt with thousands of consultants and advisors and accountants and lawyers and all this stuff. And what I've learned over time is most of them are just dead wrong. Okay. People will give you an opinion, even if they're educated on a subject, they'll give you an opinion based on their own reference point. So I need to know, if I'm going to listen to anybody, what is the reference point they have? So that's my responsibility. So I ask 3 questions if I'm going to take advice from anybody. Question number 1, what's the most amount of money you have personally ever made in a year? That's a qualifier for me. Because if somebody's only made $500,000 or $1 million or even 10 million in a year, I have nothing I can learn from that person. I've made 20, well, if you don't count my sale on the wire I got, that was $100 million. And you just talk about straight income. And I'm transparent, guys. I made $22 million last year. Why would I listen to anybody? That was my income taxes. I paid $10 million in taxes. Why would I listen to somebody that's only made $1 million a year? There's nothing that person's going to tell me that's relative to anything. They're not going to teach me about leadership. They're not going to teach me about operations. They're not going to teach me about people. They're not going to teach me about marketing. They're not going to teach me. So why would I listen to them? Second question. What's the biggest thing you've ever built? Quantified with 3 sub-questions. Number of employees, amount of revenue, and profitability. Now, let me tell you why it's important to ask those 3 questions, because people will bullshit you. Oh, I've got a company with 200 employees, 200. I hear these social media guys, and I've sat across the table from many of them. I'm like, no, I'm talking about employees, W-2 employees. Not somebody you contracted with that has people around the world and you say you have 200 people. I'm talking about your payroll. You don't have 200 people if you're not doing at least 10, 20, 30 million in revenue. At least. And you should be doing, with 200 people, you should be doing 100 million in revenue. So like, I want to know. And then the third thing is, what's the biggest exit you've ever had? Because see, I would never build anything. I would not put 1 ounce of energy into building anything if I didn't know there was evidence that it was going to create a high valued exit. Why would I want to go learn from somebody? Oh, I built a $100 million business. I built a $100 million business. I built a $100 million business. What'd you sell it for? 20 million. I'll give you Greg Ranick and me. We started at the same time. We did 600,000 at the same time. Greg built his business to 140 million and sold it for 80. I built my business to 35 and sold it for 150. Who would I rather listen to if I wanted to build a business for value? I worked 1/3 as hard as Greg did, and I sold for twice as much. So I want to know the details. And if somebody can't fill that in, now if somebody says, well, I can't tell you, it was private. Bullshit. Anybody that's done anything significant is going to brag about it, and they're not going to care what agreement they signed. Second thing, if they tell you, well, I'd like to tell you, but I can't really remember all the details. Bullshit. I can tell you every year since 2004 what my revenue numbers have been up until 2023, how many employees I had, what they were doing for the company, and who the key stakeholders were. Like, I don't forget anything, and nor do you. If you think back to those milestones, you don't forget it. So when someone tells you, oh, and they're vague and ambiguous, it's because it's bullshit. It's not true. And the third thing is, If somebody doesn't make more money than you already make, why should you pay attention to anything they have to say, even about leadership? Now, I go to John Maxwell for leadership. I've created more value than John Maxwell has, but I've not written 100 books. I've not spent a half my life with every president in the world. So you got to look at also their accomplishments. If you're looking for a specific leadership piece of advice, that's one thing. If you're looking for business advice, that's a totality of things. So you can find mentors based on where you want to fill your gaps, or as I say, pave over the potholes. But if you're looking to build a huge business, you better be talking to somebody who actually knows anything about business. And what I have found, Pete, is 98, 99% of the people espousing their success are entirely full of crap.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's so beautiful about Brandon and just about people that you want to be doing business with is don't make sure that it's not like, make sure that there's a comprehensiveness to it, like a comprehensiveness to it. Sorry, like just social media is important, but just doing social media alone is not going to get you. I mean, Mr. Beast is an exception to the rule. It's not going to get you a $125 million, $135 million company. So I love that. Hey, let me ask you this question, and then we're going to play a little game to end this interview. Guys, if you go to continuing to try 10X, I know who's got their book, like who's got their book, drop 9 figures in the chat, drop 9 figures in the chat, 9 figures. Make sure you go to 10xstages.com/Brandon. I just was on the link. I just ordered a book. Lots of you, it's working, guys. You can, and the team dropped other links in the live chat. If you're watching this show, listening to this show, it'll be in the show notes for you to be able to click, get your book, read it, leave a review. I want to tell you, one of the most powerful things you can do is leave a review, because Brandon reviews those and he's going to remember, oh, Bob and Susan and Pete, oh, that's the person who left that kick butt review. So make sure you read it, leave a review, and then go do something with it. Brandon, how big, I have to talk about communication and stages a little bit. Even from the start, when you were in boardrooms or one-on-one, one-to-many, online, offline, how important have stages and communication been a part of your journey? Even more so in the recent years of the last 4 years where your net worth has gone up a lot. Can you just talk about the importance to that for business owners?
Yeah, I can tell you that when I was a assistant sales manager in Minneapolis, Minnesota in 1989, I was 31 years old. The CEO of the company, they had 200 clients in the room, and the CEO's plane got delayed. And somebody ran up to me and said, the director of sales isn't here. We've got 200 people sitting here. We're doing programs every weekend selling specialty equipment. And I was terrified, dude, terrified of the state. Like, I always found somebody else to do it. But in that moment, it was almost like we were late and all these people were getting restless. I just grabbed the mic and ran up there and did what I did. It happened to be the most amount we ever sold. And the president came in and said, you're going to do this. The CEO came in and said, you're going to do this from now on. And I sold $25 million of stuff. The most the company had ever sold in a year was $3.8 million. And they gave me that stage. That stage was my moment. Now, if I hadn't had that moment, who knows if I would have been the person I am today, because I learned to sell to 200 at a time versus 1 at a time. And that skill set stuck with me. And Pete, you and I have had a lot of these conversations. People are terrified to even do a one-on-one communication, but just imagine that when you communicate effectively, you could have thousands of people that you're communicating to. And if 10% of those people said, I resonate with that, and I want to make a decision, your whole life could change, so can theirs. So I hold it to be a responsibility to be an expert communicator. And output amplifies input. So the more you put out, the more comes back to you. And I've never seen anybody achieve any level of greatness by holding it in so they're the only ones that know it. And what I love about Pete, and I have single-handedly watched this transformation with my wife, who was terrified of stages until she worked with Pete. Now she's remarkable.
Yeah.
It is so important, if you really externalize our responsibility as human beings, it isn't just to take care of yourself, it's to impact the lives of as many people as you can, because you're going to feel so much better about who you are when you're doing that. It's a commitment. It's a dedication. It's a responsibility to become an expert communicator. which means if you're not that, you need to learn to be it, which is what I resonate and connect so well with Pete from the first day I watched him at the first Growth Con go out and communicate.
Yeah, guys, I'm going to tell you this, a couple of things. Like Brandon has seen a significant amount of net growth that has to, or net worth, that has a lot to do with his experience of the first 15 years. But I want to tell you what, he's out in front of more people, one to many, probably than he's ever been before. And he's landing big deals. I mean, he's probably in the Hamptons this week communicating, in Italy communicating. He's communicating everywhere, and he's landing bigger and bigger deals. And so like that's really important. And one of the things that I want to do is I want anybody who gets the book, I'm going to gift you. We have an incredible digital course that we've sold to a lot of people called Communicate to Convert. Communicate to Convert, how to communicate in a powerful way that gets people want to take action with you. I'm going to gift that in to any person that at least gets one book, because I believe this book is going to change your lives. Brandon, before the final thoughts, I'm going to play a game with you. And I want to get inside your mind. And it's going to be kind of like a fire round for everybody that's listening to this show. And what is this only single piece of advice with the context that you have? You're not going to know about their business, but what's the single piece of 9-figure mindset advice that you would give to these next few categories that I'm going to give to you? Category number 1. You ready for this?
Yep.
All right. Category number 1, pre-revenues, wants to figure out how to step into having a business, being a business owner, has no revenues today. What's the single piece of advice from your 9-figure mindset that you would give to that person?
Ask somebody, find somebody who's doing something that looks exciting to you. Ask them how much money they're making, and then go find somebody that's making more, and then go work for that person for 2 or 3 years and learn the business, become an expert at your communication skills, and then go blow it up.
The person who has validation, maybe got to the 6-figure mark, over hundreds of thousands of dollars, but really wants to take it to another level. What's the piece of advice that you would give us from your mind?
Yeah. So if you can get to 6 figures, that's enough for you. When you get to 2 or 300,000, there's enough to have somebody to get to 6 figures their first time. So target number 1 is for you to get to $250,000 to 350,000, and then go get other people and teach them how to get to the 6 figures, the 100,000 number, and that'll propel you to $1 million. That's when you hit 7 figures, is when you have 10 people that you've taught to hit 6 figures.
So you're saying add to your team to have somebody who can go add 6 figures to your team.
Duplicate 2 times. So once you get to 200 grand, don't go spend your 200 grand, live on your 100 grand and go find 2 people and teach them how to make 100 grand each, and just continue to do that. And then what'll happen is you'll become a 7-figure earner very quickly, because you have to learn to multiply and amplify through people. It's very difficult to be a 7-figure and then an 8-figure. You will not make an 8-figure earner statistically unless you're amplifying and multiplying through people. So the sooner you learn to do that, the faster you accelerate to 7 and 8 figures.
I love that. Yeah, Kyle, great student. The rule of 3. There you go, Kyle. Hey, Brandon, that person who's at the 7 figures, we got several of them listening today. The biggest piece of advice that you would give to that person that's like, I want to go to the 8 figures.
Look, just go back, just reverse engineer when you hit 6 figures. To get to 8 figures, you have to get to 6. How did you do it? What did you do? Not just like, oh, I made sales calls, like exactly blueprint what you did. Then to go to 7 figures, blueprint exactly what you did. Now you want to go to 8 figures. Go train 10 or 20 people to get to the 6 figures, and you'll find 20% of them wanting to get to the 7 figures, and they will propel you to the 8. It's no longer about what you do. It's about how you can multiply and amplify through people doing things you've already proven work. There's no ethics issue here. You did it. That's your leverage. It's not you doing more. It's teaching more people to do what you already did.
And then Brandon, the last piece, and this one might be selfishly motive. How do you know if you really have a 9-figure or 10-figure possibility? How do you really know that? And, or maybe that's A, and B would be and or an exitable company, because you said you wouldn't build anything that you can't exit. So how do you know those couple of things?
Yeah, well, when you identify what you want to do, your business, for example, is teaching other people how to be expert communicators. So you have to build, once that becomes successful, you got to engineer your business to continue to add to it things that people can progress with you and do with you, which you're doing. So as long as you can continue to add and you are retaining those previous relationships, the healthiest businesses, 65% of their revenue come from businesses selling to the same person they sold to 5 years previous. So if you just continue that on, you do have a business that's scalable and growable because you're helping your people grow and scale. As far as exit value, I would just go, I mean, honestly, the best money you can ever spend is to hire an investment banker, find an investment banker, or Google highest values paid for businesses in the last 5 years. And it's going to run a whole list of sectors, HVAC sector, garage door sectors. Read the news. Like, I got a buddy that just sold 55% of his garage door, Tommy's garage doors here in Arizona, for $275 million. He sold 55%. I have another buddy sold his HVAC business for $550 million. I got another buddy at the end of 21 or at the end of 22 sold his coffee business for almost $400 million. Google that and then ask yourself the question, like I don't care what I do, as long as it's legal, moral, ethical, and compliant, and I'm not going to get in trouble. If somebody can show me that by distributing coffee or building an HVAC business or a plumbing business or whatever, I'm smart enough, I'm going to go do that versus do what I love doing. I have a buddy that became rich moving shitters out of state parks and stuff because the guy he worked for, he was such a loyal employee. When that guy wanted to sell, he gave him the keys to the business, and then the guy blew it up and became unbelievably wealthy. So you don't have to love what you do. If the thing you're doing is getting you to what you love, then you're winning.
Yeah, I love that. Brandon, before we let you go today, and I give one more just kind of thought, guys, make sure you go to 10xstages.com/Brandon. You're going to get the training. You're going to get to communicate, to convert. Like, I'll make sure that we're just, this book will change your life. The book in itself will change your life. But final thoughts for all of these business owners that are listening to this. We do the show live, but there will be, tens of thousands of people listening to it even in the show. So what would you say to them, Brandon?
All I can say is the process. This book lays out the process I went through to change who I was to becoming who I wanted to be. It's my journey. It's my story. It's the exact process that I went through. And all I can tell you is that one thing I learned is what you think you become. So I read this in Napoleon Hill and some other books that my mentors gave me, and I started realizing what I think about, I become. And then you realize who you spend your time around will condition how you think. It's a sequence of what I learned, what I did, and what the result was, and what the resources were. I have no issue saying I learned my leadership. These are the 53 laws I took from John Maxwell, and here's how I applied them. Here's what Jim Collins taught me in Good to Great, Great by Choice, How the Mighty Fall. Here's what Sharon Lechter taught me in Cash Flow Quadrant and 3 Feet from Goal. I give credit to everyone who's impacted my life, Grant Cardone, all that, because I want to point you to the reference. Now, if you want the shortcut, you can read this book. If you want to read the 30 books and spend 25 years figuring it out on your own, this might not be the book for you.
Yeah, I love that, man. Guys, would y'all drop some love for Mr. Brandon Dawson? Would y'all drop some love in the chat? Come on, let's go. Let's go. Brandon, thank you, man. I love you. Grateful for you. I know you have a lot going on today. So lots of people, hey, who picked up 9-figure mindset? Put 9-figure, drop 9-figure in the chat. If you picked that up, drop it in the chat. I want them to see it, and I want you to read it. And man, look at that, guys. Look at that. I cannot wait to see you on September 14th, guys, at the training. Brandon, thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Pete, by the way, if anybody orders over 25 books, we're going to do something really special. So if anybody does that for their team or whatever, make sure they notify you so I can put them on that list.
Easy, easy. Hey, guys, I know what the something special is. Thanks, Brandon. I know what the something special is. I can't tell you, but if you do order 25, there's going to be something that's pretty profound in the month of October. Make sure you pick up one of those. The guy, Brandon, is brilliant, man. Just me being in proximity, like I'm gonna have the book done like in the next week. I'm gonna have the book done in the next week, but I wanted to wait for this interview to make sure and really, challenge you guys. Hey, what's the biggest takeaway that you had from today? Make sure you write that down. What are you going to do? What's the action you're going to take out of today's show? What's the action that you're going to take out of today's show? For me, I'm going to get some of the confusion that I have out of here. I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to freaking accept it. I'm going to go take action on what calls to me, and I'm going to go attack it. I want you guys to go attack it too. I want you to go attack it too. So, man, what another wonderful week on Backstage with PV3. Next week, we have Amy Porterfield that's going to be with us. You aren't going to want to miss this. We're going to give away a lot of cool stuff, a lot of free stuff next week. Same time, every week. Make sure you're letting your friends know. And guys, until next week, God bless and make it an incredible week.